Charlie Boat will come up and introduce our speaker today.
Thank you, and welcome everybody. I know you're going to enjoy today's presentation, and welcome all of you online today. The idea for this program began last July. You know, we have the vocational luncheons in July. And Chef Joshua Wickham was nice enough to invite Columbus State to a vocational luncheon. And he didn't know he was going to be speaking that day, but we asked him, we said, well, you know, he's here, why don't you come on down and speak? So he came down extemporaneously and gave a wonderful presentation for what, 10 or 15 minutes. In fact, it was so terrific that just about maybe everybody there called me, talked to me, stopped me in the hall and said, you know, you've got to get this person back to do a whole program. So he's here today. And so that was the seeds of today. So he's Chef Joshua Wickham. And I asked him some time ago, I've known him for a couple of years, and I said, what do you do there? Because, you know, Mitchell Hall is where all of our hospitality programs and our chef training programs are. And I said, what do you do there? And he said, well, basically anything that happens within Mitchell Hall, I'm responsible for. His official title, and I always need to read it because it's very long. He's Senior Director for the School of Hospitality Management and Culinary Arts at Columbus State Community College. And he's going to tell you more about that today. He oversees all the operations and all the academics, both within the hospitality program. And that essentially is Mitchell Hall. He began his career when he was 13 years old, washing dishes. And he'll tell us if that's the way most chefs start. I don't know if that's that way. That's the way Joshua started. He spent most of his culinary career in private dining for before he transitioned to higher education, where in 2018 he's been in higher education. And altogether, he looks so young, it's hard to believe this, but he did start at 13 years old. I guess you included that.
Yes, absolutely.
But he has spent 30 years, over 30 years in culinary and hospitality industry. I asked him, somebody that's there in culinary, what do you like to eat? Because he can cook anything. He's a gourmet cook and so forth. And he said, well, you know, I really like pizza. I like all kinds of pizza. And that's his favorite food. And he told me that one of his greatest joys is sharing what he does, cooking, teaching cooking, helping people become chef. And that's what he's doing this morning. So what he's doing this morning with all of you is what he enjoys doing so much in life. So Josh, we're really looking forward to having you. So this Josh Wickham.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
So most of today's presentation is going to cover dishwashing efficiencies. We're going to talk about safety, sanitation, and efficiency. That's not true. Really kind of the keystone to what I'm going to talk about today is partnership and then experiential learning. So as Charlie said, my name is Josh Wickham. I am a Columbus native, born and raised in North Columbus, Clintonville area, still there. I did start working in restaurants when I was 13 years old. Franco's, which was an old pizza shop on North High Street, they used to show old black and white movies. That was really where I started in the dish tank, and then did some busing, and then ultimately landed on the pizza line. I had a milk crate that I would stand on that I could work my oven. And they actually put little claws in the floor that I could like push my milk crate into so that it wouldn't slip. But I was a heck of a pizza cook at 14 years old. And that is really, where my love of pizza came from. I will ultimately die in a pizza shop. That is my plan. Hopefully it's mine and the one that I own and I'm working in. But it could be anyone, right? He went out doing what he loves. Yeah, it sounds a little silly with all my background, but I do always fall back on pizza. There's something pure about half a dozen ingredients that time, temperature, and technique can end up in 1,000 different results. So a little bit about my background. I graduated from the Culinary Apprenticeship Program at Columbus State in 2001. I did my apprenticeship at the Lakes Golf and Country Club, just north of Chef James Decker. I was there for about 4 years, and then I did a short stint as sous chef at Jefferson Country Club. So really, golf club is really where my professional career kind of blossomed and my formal education started. And then I was at Ohio State for almost 5 years. I opened up their first station concept dining facility. Took about 6 months to get it open, ran it for another 6 months, and then went on to build their catering program, which is now University Catering. So feeding thousands on shoestring budgets, we would get student groups that would come in and be like, okay, we've got 800 people. We definitely want chocolate for dessert. Definitely. We have $400. Cool. So we'd wave our wand and we'd make it happen. And then from Ohio State, I landed at Rocky Ford Country Club, where I was, I started as sous chef, did not last long, and then became executive chef and held that mantle for almost 10 years. I learned a lot at that club. They invested a ton of time and money into my professional development. So I will always be grateful for what they did to me. So private clubs have a special place in my heart. I will never work at another. I'm good. I'm good. After going from private club life to public education administration, it's amazing. I had 2.5 weeks off around Christmas and New Year's. That is not something you experience at a private club. So definitely the college has it's a little better for family life. I'm pursuing my master's degree, so it's working, and it's working for me, and it's something that I tell all my students now. Like, once you start to feel that a little bit, and your legs aren't as strong as they used, like you better have a plan, because it's really hard to stand and lead a kitchen our entire lives. So that's why we kind of try to look at the industry more than culinary, right? We are hospitality, right? And by really kind of focusing on the broader experience, right? When we look at going out to eat, when we look at dining, the actual food on that plate is a very small slice of the pie. It starts at the parking lot, right? When we pulled in here, what did we all see? Those folks out there clearing that snow were here long before any of us were. They were here before any of that staff was. And it could be said that that piece of the experience could be the most important, right? Is getting people up the hill and into the building safely. So it's never just the food, right? It's the parking lot, it's the sidewalks, it's the bathrooms, it's the service, it's how you're greeted, it's how you're treated, it's how you're sent home, right? So it's a very, very, very big picture. And in order to do that with our students, what we've been able to do is really embrace partnership, both with industry, but not only that, with partner institutions, to really kind of benchmark what we do, make sure that it's valid, make sure that it's correct. We are very proud of our accreditations with the American Culinary Federation, with ACFA. We're going to say hospitality management programs, and there's a whole bunch of other letters in there, but I can't remember them. I should have written that down. Just to make sure that we are doing what we say we're doing, right? And Columbus State hospitality has had a long history of that, and that that ethic, that work ethic, that willingness to kind of go above and beyond the daily grind is what really put us in position to accept the partnership with Cameron Mitchell and Wasserstrom and Heidelberg and Zink and so many more to build Mitchell Hall. And we moved into Mitchell Hall in September of 19, about 6 months too early. It was not ready, but it's almost ready. How many years later? We're getting there. So that we could really create an environment where our students could experience hospitality, right? And not just sit and be spoken to, but participate in and actively engage in and serve. So we went from an 8,000 square foot, 2 kitchens in the basement, where we had a couple spatulas that we shared, right? Has anybody seen the spatula? Right? You'd have to run to another kitchen and find it. To what we live in now, which is 80,000 square feet. We have 10 state-of-the-art kitchens. We have a 90-seat fine dining restaurant with a D5 liquor license, as well as a full-service, all-scratch cafe and bake shop that feeds about 350 people a day during the week while we're in session. We have 4 amazing kitchen labs with 9 stations. Our students don't have to share a whole lot anymore, which is kind of nice. But we're totally setting them up for when they hit the real world, and it's like, oh my gosh, I don't have any space. But what we have created is an environment where our students feel comfortable, where they have what they need to focus on learning, to focus on technique, to focus on hospitality and culinary fundamentals, and not worrying about having enough equipment, or not worrying about sharing an oven with someone, or not have to worry about making it work. So it's been really, really amazing. Our restaurant feeds, we do about 100 people a day, and then it's all it is fine dining. I mean, we make everything from scratch. All of our menus are created in-house. We have a culinary leadership team in our restaurants. We have an executive chef, sous chef, restaurant manager, dining room supervisor. And then the most important position in these operations, or we call them our coordinators. We have culinary coordinators, and we have hospitality coordinators. And when we are in business and when we're open, I like to call our culinary coordinators, they're kind of playing a zone defense, right? So they are the station experts. They're there every day. They're full-time. They're salaried employees, fully benefited. They're very well taken care of, and they're very, very important to what we do, because the students need to be able to come in and again, we're not simulating. So there are people in the dining room that are paying money to be there. They're on a time budget. They have stuff to do. We're not faking it. So it's important that we have to maintain a certain quality of product, right? But we also, it's first day every day, because these students, they come in, we have, we're running 6 classes a week. And for the first 5-6 weeks, like, I would not call these students assets to the operational capacity of the restaurant. Okay. Really quite the opposite. So these coordinators and our leadership team they're kind of like this that first week, like our motto is, don't let anyone stay on fire. Right? I cannot guarantee you that you will not catch on fire, but I can guarantee you that we will put you out. Okay. So these coordinators running their zone defense, they are the station experts. They are the ones that are really arm in arm with the students during our operational time to teach them, to show them, to allow them to experience, and then to support them through the process, right? And to make sure that that it's correct, that it tastes good, right? And that the student understands what they're doing. This model can be applied to, I mean, really any profession that you can really think of. And the apprenticeship was really kind of the model for this. Columbus State's apprenticeship program has been, it's tied for the oldest American Culinary Federation accredited apprenticeship program in the United States at 42 years. That has been, and that started at Columbus State. Columbus Technical Institute, CTI is what it used to be. So, you know, kind of looking at that experiential model, and it was like, well, how do we provide this opportunity to all of our students, not just the apprentices? Because an apprenticeship, it's everything. You're putting everything in that basket. Like we're talking 2,000 hours a year. So 6,000 hours of on-the-job training is what this requires. You have to work full time. And the one day that you're guaranteed off for work, you're at school, right? That's not for everybody. The other issue that we have with this program is that it's paid. So when you go out and you become an apprentice, you are being paid for it. Well, now we're dealing with students and wage cliff issues, right? So you have a student that has a child that maybe has 2 children. They receive benefits for their childcare, they receive SNAP benefits for their food, and now all of a sudden we require them to get an $18, $19 an hour job, which isn't enough to cover what they need to cover, but they're required to now be there 40, 50 hours a week, right? It's very hard. So ultimately what would happen is that you would have these students that would come in and they'd say, I want to be a chef, right? I want to be a culinarian. And we had this one option for them as the apprenticeship. And they would try it and they would fail. It's a lot. It's very hard. It's extremely rigorous. It should be, but that doesn't mean that it's the one size for everyone, right? So really looking at kind of the strengths of an apprenticeship program, but how do we bring that in-house, right? How do we set up a program to where these students can get the experiential learning without having to go out and get a job, right? Or without having to go sacrifice everything for this on-the-job training. Is the result in students the same? No, they're not. Do we have successes in each? Absolutely, we do. We also have failures in both. Just because, you know, the apprenticeship program isn't your thing doesn't necessarily mean that the in-house culinary program isn't going to be your thing. They both do take a lot of work, but the other one provides a little bit of flexibility, and it increases the ability. It increases the amount of people that can take advantage of our culinary program. They need to have some supports on the backside, because all of a sudden you do kind of get turned out into the world as opposed to apprentice when you are there day one, right? Day one, you're somebody's bottom line. Either you're in a club or you're in an independent restaurant, and really everything that you do it's real from day one. And with our in-house, it's like it's real light, right? You have a lot more. It's a little bit more regimented. There's a little bit more protections in there, and you have those professionals that are at your side to make sure that you succeed, as opposed to the apprenticeship when it's like, oh, you're on your own, don't mess it up, okay? Where everyone's watching, all of them. So, you know, we've really been, and we're really coming into our own now. Pandemic, because like I said, we moved in September 19, right? The restaurant was open for 7 weeks, fully staffed, and then we closed for almost 2 years. And that was tough. We had 2 retail operations. My total staff goes to almost 60 people. About 50 of those are operations. The rest are academics. So we had these huge teams, and then all of a sudden we had no restaurants. So in order to keep everybody, we hooked up with the Mid-Ohio Collective, and we did about 1,200 bag lunches a day for 4 months. That's a lot of lunches. And basically Mid-Ohio would just come and drop off pallets worth of food, and then we would turn them into lunches, and then we would have a caravan of cars that would come through, and they would take these big boxes of lunches to various places around the city where food normally wasn't taken. So it wasn't taken directly to the shelters. They were taken like under bridges and behind industrial parks. And so they were taken directly to these people. So that was really nice to kind of keep everybody running. But then we also had our students coming back. Like, we were one of the first programs that came back on campus, and we were back summer semester. So by the end of May, we were already back in session in person. Now, the only reason that we were able to do this because we had so much space. And what we did was we split all classes into 2. We added instructors to each class, and then students ran one student per table. We took our retail teams, the restaurant team, did all the mise en place. Everybody know what mise en place means? Mise en place is everything in place, right? So whenever we set our stations for cooking, we mise en place. Whenever we cook a recipe, we mise en place. So before we mix anything, everything is weighed, everything is scaled, everything is measured, double checked, right? So mise en place, I say it's more than a list of ingredients, it's a state of mind. Mise en place your life. So my restaurant team would do all the mise en place, right? So the instructors would do their requisition lists, they would provide recipes, and then we would have to go in and we would say 2 teaspoons of baking powder, 2 cups of flour, 1 teaspoon of salt. All right, there's 1, and now you have 18 more students to do that for this class. And then we have 3 more classes today, and then we have some tomorrow. So it turned into a 40-hour-a-week job just doing mise en place. And then we had our bakery team set stations. So they would come in the morning and they would put everything on, 2-quart sauce pot with a lid, rubber spatula, slotted spoon, regular spoon, medium mixing bowl, 2 whisks, and that would all be laid out. So when our students came in, they would walk straight into their station and they would not have to leave. All their food was set, all their equipment was set. Then we had dishwashers that would walk and facilitators and clear, so the students never had to leave. We ran like that for almost a year, so that we could satisfy the social distancing requirements. And like looking, I almost kind of like blocked a lot of it out. It was pretty traumatic. It really was, and it was for our students too. But to be kind of on that leading at the tip of the spear for reentry for the college was absolutely amazing. I could not be more proud of my team for doing that, but then also being prepared enough to get me at the table that made the decisions for the college as a whole. So I always knew what was going on, and I always got to weigh in on that. And I always got to leverage our partnerships, and I got to leverage our team in order to do what we need to do as a college to get everybody back into our classrooms. So that was very, very rewarding. And it made us very strong. It made us all very flexible, and it made us all very grateful to have what we have. Because had we been in that 8,000 square foot basement, we'd have been out of business. Like we would have been piecing together our programs right now. So a little bit about, we couldn't do that on our own. For one, we couldn't pay for that on our own. We needed capital, but we also needed expertise. So the Mitchell Hall project was Columbus State's, it's not quite anymore, but it was to date their largest public-private partnership. It's about a $35 million deal, all said. Cameron was a huge supporter of that. He was pretty much personally responsible for raising about $10 million through industry partnerships. Columbus State had about 15 in the game, and then we had 10 million from the state of Ohio. So that's kind of how all that came together. But when we were building these facilities, we had all those partners at the table. Every table. It was unbelievable who was at these meetings. I remember the first one I got called in, like I felt like I was about this big in the ocean, right? The littlest fish in the biggest pond. And I raised my hand and I said something. Everybody was like, "Yes, excellent." Really? So it was cool because they cared about what we had to say. We were the teachers, we were the instructors, we were the ones that were going to live in this kitchen. We were the ones that were going to work with the students every day, and they wanted to know what we had to say. So, after the first and second meeting, we had faculty in every single meeting that we did, whether it was directly related to instruction or facilities or design or anything. Like there was one of us in the room at all times. And I really think that was kind of the key to making this a success, is that having the partners and having the folks in the room that have to live in the space, it makes sense, right? It's kind of like, well, duh, but that's not always what happens, right? So that input was huge. But then also, Cameron was a lot more than money. expertise was huge. They helped us design that restaurant and the cafe. But then as we were opening and standardizing the menu, we had one of their best regional chefs and one of their best regional directors embedded with us for almost 10 weeks for the menu development, for the rollouts, for and rollout, I'm getting a little jargony. So for a menu rollout is a very orchestrated exercise in kind of unveiling a new menu, right? Cameron Mitchell's has a very, very solid system that they use when they roll out a new menu. We got to kind of be a part of that. It was absolutely exhausting, but I would never do it a different way. There were 3 of us that were developing the menu. We'd be like, all right, we're gonna do appetizers today. So you do 4, you do 4, I'm gonna do 4. And then we would come in tomorrow and we would cook them all. And then we would talk to each the other, and we're gonna get this 12 down to 4, right? So this one's garbage, no offense. Don't want that one. This one's really good, but it's too sweet. So we want to back it off. We're gonna change it, right? It's gonna be our 1. Then ultimately we would get down to that 4. We would cook those until we were happy with them. And then we would bring in the next level of leadership from CMR. And they would come in and be like, well, Cameron's gonna do that. But that's okay. That's all right. We'll just tell him that it's okay. So they kind of gave us the answers to the next level. And then finally, it was Cameron and David Miller would come in and they would sit down and they would be served all these dishes. But those dishes had gone through a distillation process, like every step of leadership throughout that company, until it ultimately landed on his plate. He'd be like, I hate it. And they'd be like, we knew you would, but we're doing it anyway. And he'd be like, okay, cool. And that's kind of how they run, right? But it was neat to watch that process. But they opened the curtains for us. They allowed us to, and even today, if I was like, hey, can I come work in one of your restaurants? They'd be like, yeah, sure, which one do you want to do? And it's the same thing with my staff. All my leadership team has been embedded in their restaurants and spent time in their busiest kitchens, Cap City and Ocean Club. And I mean, Hudson, they opened their doors to us. And they're not the only ones. Wasserstrom has been an amazing partner. They helped us fill those kitchens. And still to this day, I can call Brad. My contact list has become quite powerful, and I never thought that I would have these kind of contacts. So it's been a pretty amazing journey, and we're really at the beginning. Yeah, I can probably get questions now.
No, go finish.
No, I'm good. We really are at the beginning stages, right? We are just now kind of graduating our first post-pandemic classes. Now we're in this kind of weird time where we're dealing, I call it the ripple, where we're dealing with the high school students that are coming in now that were products of the pandemic. Because we had our own ripple, right, of students that didn't quite get what they probably should have, or what they thought they were going to get, right? They got that super modified, safe distanced approach. I mean, that was a whole cohort. It was a 2-year cohort. And I don't know, I still feel we did what we could, but they got the short end. They really did. And now it's, like I said, it's those high school students that are coming in. So it's those 10th, 11th graders that missed years. So we've had to kind of soften the approach. We have to handle ourselves with a little bit more grace, a little bit more understanding. We have to be ready for remediation. And I mean, I'm talking remediation in like basic math and basic word processing. And that's hard because we don't have an unlimited amount of time. I've got you 4 hours today. And if I have to teach you how to basic arithmetic, that's tough, right? So as a department, we've tried to really set up an infrastructure where we can support these people with ancillary systems, but also having a point person in place to say, if you're struggling, go talk to Allison, right? Go talk to Chef Krimmer. And we all have resources at our fingertips that we can get into these students to help, either with, socioeconomical barriers, or whether it's tutoring, or whether it's accessibility services. Because we really, our job is to serve everyone. We don't get to say, you get to stay, or you're good enough, or you're not good enough. We admit everybody that comes to us. And that requires us to be aware of who we're dealing with, because one size does not fit all. And there's a lot of gray in what we do. So I'll finish up on that. Yes, sir.
So, as far as, there's a culinary school, at least there's a sign up on Stelter Road. Is there any relationship between Columbus State and that?
No, so that was a Bradford property, Bradford
Oh.
School.
Oh, okay.
They've been out of business for, I want to say, about 3 years now. They went down right after we opened.
Follow-up question.
Yep.
So is the fine dining room open to the public?
Thank you for asking.
Yeah.
Yeah, we actually opened today. So our business operation follows the academic year. So if the college is closed for break, then we are closed as a restaurant. We're open Monday through Thursday. We do lunch from 11 to 2, and then we do dinner from 4 to 8, and we have happy hour from 4 to 6. So happy hour, we got some pretty sweet deal on wines and beers and liquor. We have a really awesome appetizer menu. The new menu this season is amazing. Very, very proud of it. Yeah, and then the cafe is open Monday through Thursday, 7 to 3. So if you're downtown for a meeting, stop by, grab a box of donuts or some cinnamon rolls and a coffee, and take them to your meeting, and everybody will love you. I promise. I do it all the time. Wow, you guys are gonna make it really hard.
Where do you park?
At Columbus State, so the lot right across the street on Cleveland Avenue is reserved for us. Now you do have to pay for it, but that lot is reserved for Columbus State dining.
I am a huge fan and regular participant in the adult cooking
Oh
class.
yeah, the mix. I forgot all about the mix. I didn't really forget about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Johnny Kelly's a really good
Isn't she
cook.
fun?
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's awesome. What role does that play in the business of mental health?
So you bring up, I overlooked it. So we have our third kind of retail operation. We call it the Mix. And it is recreational cooking classes. So they are one-offs or they're a series. We've got a couple of amazing mercenary chefs that come in and deliver these classes for us. So that's kind of our marketing. You know what I mean? That gets butts in seats, right? Because everybody has a niece or a nephew or a son or a daughter or a friend that, you know, has someone that's interested in hospitality. So if I can get you in those kitchens, and then when that conversation comes up at the dinner table, you're like, have you been to Columbus State? Because it's amazing, right?
Does it help the bottom line at all?
It breaks even.
It seems pretty reasonable.
It's too reasonable. Yeah. Yeah, no, I know how reasonable it is. Trust me, I know. But it really is. It's a break-even proposition, right? We employ, you know, I want to say we have a full-time salaried coordinator that runs that, but then also probably 3,000 or 4,000 hours of you know, work that's paying someone to do that. But it's exposure, it's fun, but it's getting people at Columbus State that want to be there, not necessarily that have to be there. It changes the vibe. You can talk with people and not at them, right? So yeah, you've had your Stokes, our neighbor.
General question about the future of the restaurant business.
Mhm.
We go out, the food's more expensive, service isn't always very good. What's it gonna take to be a successful restaurant going forward?
I think the whole service has changed. Service in general, I think, has changed. I think the pandemic did do that to us. I think that a lot of us are more tolerant of less service. I don't think it's going to stay that way. I think the expectation will come back, especially for a certain sector of dining. I do believe that the pandemic created almost a new sector of dining where it's almost that it's the self-service model, you know, where you go in and I don't know if anybody's been to Catalina's too in Clintonville, but like you're not allowed to sit down until you order, right? You order, then you go sit down, they bring you your food, but you clear it. Like it's all on you. It's a great vibe. It's cool. People do it. But like, if you're going to a nice sit down restaurant, you know, fine dining, then you do expect to be served, right? I don't know what it's gonna take. Some are gonna win, some are gonna fail, you know? It's I'm even as a chef, service is where my heart is. Because you can have mediocre food, mediocre, have amazing service. It's a pretty good night. Everybody's going home happy. The opposite is not true. You can have best food in the world and if the service is not good, that's gonna be you're gonna talk about it when you get home. Be like, the food was okay, but right. So I'm always service first. Yep.
So in that line of talking about service, talk about hospitality business. Does Cameron Mitchell's, the word yes, part of your underlying philosophy that you teach all those?
Absolutely. Yeah.
School there?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, and I think that's an expectation of our faculty too. You know, like, yeah, we're gonna do everything that we can to get you through that. Now I do have a certain obligation to make sure that you are, you know, meeting the appropriate metrics to get through that, but we are going to do everything in our power to make that work. And I think that yes is the answer. I mean, I think that they really live by that. As somebody who, you know, was on the outside and put in some uncomfortable situations, they live that. And I think it's easy to emulate that when you believe that the person that's saying it means it. So yeah, yes.
What's the credential that the students graduate with from your apprenticeship program as well as your in-house program?
So with the apprenticeship program, you graduate with an Associates of Applied Science in Hospitality Management with culinary apprenticeship, which comes with professional certification. So they come out with a certified sous chef, which is kind of second level in the certification realm. You've got certified culinarian, certified sous chef, certified chef de cuisine, executive chef, and then master chef. There's less than 60 master chefs in the United States. So that's a huge step. But then the in-house culinary, they graduate with the Associates of Applied Science in Hospitality Management with a culinary focus, but no certification. Now they can apply for certification if they have the work experience to back it up, but they do not graduate with it. So that's the biggest difference. And then, you know, the time spent either in the restaurant or not. Yeah. We get one more. You get to pick it. You get to
Oh,
pick
it
them.
doesn't matter, whoever wants to go.
Talking about service, I see them on a restaurant starting to use robotics
Mhm.
for serving. Do you teach that at all?
Yeah, you know, we have not gone into that a lot, though. One of my good friends is with Zinc Food Service, and they're like a big brokerage, but they have these. They're about the size of a Volkswagen bus, and it's a trailer. It's on wheels, but it has a one of those manufacturing robots in it, like one of the arms. It's fully automated barista, and it'll pump out 200 cups of coffee an hour. Full custom, right? And they do, I think they'll do 8 to 1,200 a day, depending on the capacity that you get. And that's 1 hour of maintenance a day, one person. So I think I heard that just one of those at Ohio State turns out almost $300,000 a year in sales. And there's not even a person working in
Mike
it.
DeLong does that.
Yeah,
It's a pretty nice.
yeah. One more, just because I know him.
So what's the path for your graduating students after they get their degrees or whatever it is? Then where?
So culinary wise, you would normally, you're pretty qualified for a sous chef position. And that's ideally why we want to keep our apprentices at one property so they can move into a leadership position. For the in-house, you're looking at, you might be able to land a sous chef job, but you're looking at probably like a cook 1, cook 2. Like you're still gonna be working. It's gonna be an entry level position for the most part. And then, I mean, to be perfectly honest, like becoming a very successful chef is, there's not a lot of those jobs in the city, frankly. I mean, when you look at like country club chefs, how many clubs do we have in Central Ohio? You know, there's only one executive chef per property. So, I mean, we're talking less than a dozen. And that's one of the higher paying sectors for an executive chef. So it's there's limited jobs out there. So that's one of the things, why it's so important that we talk about the experience in the bigger umbrella, so that people are aware of the other facets and other opportunities, so that they're not like, well, I guess I'm not gonna be that, oh man, you guys are just gonna have to catch me. I'm gonna get in trouble. It's not me, it's her. See, we practiced that.
No, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Well, that was a good presentation. I'm so sorry, I was cutting it short, but we have limited time. Real quick.